Today, we're diving deep into one of the most fundamental and provocative debates in the world of philosophy, theology, and human understanding. Our topic? The burden of proof argument, why theists must prove God exists. We'll explore why religious belief is often considered illogical or biased, why the burden of proof lies with the one making the claim, yes, that means theists, and what counterarguments religious believers often bring up. We'll also touch on thinkers like Osho Rajneesh, Yuval Noah Harari, and classical atheistic logic. So, buckle up for a journey through reason, religion, and rationality. Who has the burden of proof when it comes to God's existence? Should atheists disprove God, or must theists provide evidence for their claims? This is one of the most fundamental debates in philosophy and religion. The burden of proof argument states that the person making a claim must justify it, not the skeptic. If a theist says God exists, the responsibility is on them to prove it. Atheists aren't required to disprove God. They simply reject the claim due to lack of evidence. Many religious stories borrow from older myths. For example, Noah's Ark resembles the Epic of Gilgamesh, Babylonian flood myth. 1800 BCE. Jesus' resurrection mirrors Osiris, Egypt, Dionysus, Greece. Yuval Noah Harari, Sapiens. Religions are fictional stories that unite large groups, but they're still human-made. Osho's take. Religions exploit fear. They promise heaven, threaten hell, but provide no real proof. Example of bias. A Christian raised in India would likely be Hindu. Belief is often geographical, not logical. Let's begin with a simple question. If I claim that there's an invisible unicorn in my garage, who has the burden of proof, you or me? Exactly. The burden of proof is always on the person making the claim. In the context of religion, the theist makes a bold and extraordinary claim. God exists. The atheist, agnostic, or skeptic simply says, I don't believe you until you provide evidence. This isn't hostility. It's rational skepticism, the same skepticism we apply to everything else in life. Carl Sagan, the famous astrophysicist, once said, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And what could be more extraordinary than the claim of an all-powerful, all-knowing, invisible being who created everything? Religious belief isn't just about personal faith. It often becomes the basis for politics, education, laws, and morality. That's why it's crucial to question these claims, not to disrespect them, but to understand whether they are based on reason or simply tradition, emotion, and fear. Think about it. Billions of people organize their lives around a belief that by religious leaders' own admission can't be proven. Now, ask yourself, would we accept that in any other part of life? Would we fund a government project based on feelings rather than facts? Would we accept a scientific theory just because it sounds comforting? Let's bring in Osho Rajneesh, the mystic and philosopher. Osho often said that belief in God isn't a product of enlightenment or discovery. It's often rooted in fear and conditioning. Man is afraid, so he creates gods. Man is in fear, so he needs some father figure to protect him. That's how the God of religion is born. What Osho highlighted is not atheism in the scientific sense, but a psychological understanding. He argued that the need for God is more about emotional security than spiritual truth. Religion gives you certainty in an uncertain world, but certainty isn't the same as truth. Yuval Noah Harari, author of Sapiens, gives us another lens. He argues that humans evolved by telling stories, fictional shared beliefs, that helped coordinate large groups. Religion is the most powerful fiction ever created. It gave people meaning and unity, but that doesn't make it true. In Sapiens, Harari compares religion to money, nations, and corporations, all invented concepts that exist because we collectively agree to believe in them. They are intersubjective realities. Powerful, yes, but still human-made. In Harari's view, religion is not inherently evil, but it's not based on objective reality either. It's a social technology, not a cosmic truth. Let's now look at how religious arguments often fall apart under logic. Here are some of the most common logical fallacies used in theistic reasoning. 1. God of the gaps. We don't know how the universe began, so God must have done it. This is a classic fallacy. Just because we don't know something doesn't mean a supernatural explanation is valid. Science admits what it doesn't know. Religion pretends to know everything. 2. Appeal to faith. You just have to believe. That's not an argument. That's a surrender of reason. Faith, by definition, is belief without evidence. But why should we suspend our critical thinking in one area of life and not others? 3. Argument from authority. This holy book says it, so it must be true. This is circular reasoning. The book is true because it says it's true. Would you accept that logic from any other source? Now, let's be fair. Religious people have their defenses. Let's look at some common replies and analyze them. 1. You can't prove God doesn't exist. This is true, but that's not how logic works. You can't prove the non-existence of invisible dragons either. The burden is not on the skeptic to disprove, it's on the believer to prove. 2. Billions of people believe in God, so it must be true. Popularity isn't evidence. Billions believed the earth was flat or that bloodletting cured disease. Belief doesn't equal truth. 3. I had a personal experience. This is subjective, not objective. People from all religions report experiences with their God. This suggests it's psychological or cultural, not universal truth. Archaeology has actually challenged many religious claims. For example, the story of the Great Flood, common in the Bible and Mesopotamian myths, has no universal evidence. Local floods occurred, yes, but a worldwide flood wiping out all life. No geological evidence supports this. The story of Exodus, where Moses led Israelites out of Egypt, lacks solid archaeological backing. Many scholars, including Israeli archaeologists, have noted that there is no clear evidence for such a massive migration. Religious texts are often mythologized history, not factual accounts. They were written centuries after the events, often with political or moral agendas. The Flying Spaghetti Monster, FSM, coined by Bobby Henderson as satire. If we allow for unprovable gods, why not believe in a flying spaghetti monster? The point is not to mock, but to show how ridiculous the logic becomes when we abandon evidence. Occam's razor. This principle says the simplest explanation is usually the best. If the universe can be explained by physics, biology, and psychology, then adding God did it is unnecessary complexity. Russell's teapot. Philosopher Bertrand Russell imagined a teapot orbiting the sun. You can't disprove it, but that doesn't mean it's rational to believe in it. Just like God, if something is unfalsifiable, it's not worthy of belief. Despite all this, billions still believe. Why? Because religion provides comfort, community, purpose. These are emotional needs, not evidential truths. We all fear death. We all seek meaning. Religion promises both, but that doesn't make it true. This is the empathy point. Most people aren't irrational. They're simply afraid. Or they've been conditioned since childhood to accept belief without question. So what happens when we ask theists to provide proof? Often, the conversation turns to, "You're being arrogant. You hate God. Science can't explain everything either." These are distractions. Asking for evidence isn't arrogance. It's intellectual honesty. We don't hate unicorns. We just don't believe in them without proof. Same goes for gods. The burden of proof, once returned to the theist, reveals the hollow core of blind faith. Let's end with a powerful quote from Christopher Hitchens: "What can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence." If someone claims a God exists, the burden is on them to prove it, not on you to disprove it. We must be courageous enough to question inherited beliefs, bold enough to stand with reason, and compassionate enough to understand why others still believe, even if we don't. As Osho said, truth is not something outside to be discovered, it is something inside to be realized. That realization begins with questioning. Thanks for staying with me through this long exploration. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like, share it with a curious mind, and subscribe for more deep dives into philosophy, science, and critical thinking. What do you think about the burden of proof? Have you ever challenged a religious claim and been told you had to disprove it? Let's talk in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, stay rational, and most importantly, stay free.